Coming to you live from $1 Million Studios. Your boy is Chris Bezak.
A.K.A. Speezy Does It.
And the benchmark of professional wrestling, Mr. Silky Baines.
Representing that king of 205 Live.
Speezy the Benchmark Show on a Thursday night, August 23rd, 2018. Thank you so much for being with us. Whether you're on Periscope, on the YouTubes, or listening to us after the fact on the podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, we're everywhere, Silky.
Yes.
So hopefully you good folks will find us and subscribe and continue to join us because we're happy to have you here. Thank you. Look at that. Super Hearts already from Mac Diesel. So we're off to a great start. Already. So welcome to everybody joining us here today. We hope that you will share the program as well. And I wanted to talk about this right off the bat because I guess it sort of ties into what we're going to talk about today because we want to talk about heels and faces. There's a lot of talk about heels and faces and heel turns and is this guy a heel and is the Shield heel or are they not and blah, 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 blah. So what we wanted to do, and thank you, Alistair Fiend, for the Super Hearts as well. What we want to do is, just talk about it a little bit. See if it even matters because some people say that it doesn't. So we'll chat about that. But first, I've got to reference this. Dr. Huge mentioned it on his program earlier today. Our friend at Dr. Huge every day at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Shout out to the Doc.
This came out from Scott Dawson of The Revival. He tweeted this out earlier today. On behalf of The Revival, I want to personally apologize to Jim Cornette, Beautiful Bobby Eaton, Loverboy Dennis Condrey, Sweet Stan Lane, and all tag team purists for the B team representing and regressing the division as champions on Raw.
So good.
That is outstanding.
That is so good.
I don't ever want to heel. I don't ever want to hear about the Revival being anything other than top guys because that's.
They're not top guys, but that was great.
Absolutely top guys. And what's with you wearing the Ricochet shirt and dropping a King of 205 Live reference?
He is the king, right? King Ricochet. And he's going to be King of 205 Live.
Certainly
Hence
not the King of 205 Live. Boom. That's ridiculous. So, welcome again to all you guys. I got to get over to the YouTube here so we make sure that we're including all of those folks on the chat as well. Mushy's back.
Mushy!
How great is that? And Mags and Bags with us as well. Good evening to you guys. Alistair Feeney's popping back and forth between Periscope and YouTube. He doesn't know where he wants to join us, but hey, we're happy to have him. Thanks to all of you who are inviting your followers. We appreciate that as we always do. So let's get into it here, Silky. I wanted to. I'm gonna go to a particular. And excuse me for using my phone during the show. Not that I'm not paying attention to everybody and and what we're talking about here. But there was a question that was posed on Twitter earlier that I responded to, and it got me to thinking. And I'm curious to hear everybody else's take as well. And I got to give credit to the guy who mentioned it because, again, we're talking about heels and faces, and some people seem to think it's a big deal. Some people think it's not a big deal, but I thought the way that this guy worded the particular question was good, and of course now I'm having trouble finding it because we're live on the show and that's what happens. So Silky, say something stupid.
I hate your face. There we go. But let's speak about this whole, speaking of the heels and faces, I want to know, do you guys think it matters nowadays? Because I was listening to Jim Cornette, and they were kind of talking about something similar in the fact of he was talking about Ring of Honor and, just back in the day and how he properly booked, like, why the transition never made it from the OVW guys when they made it to the main roster. And one of the interesting things was he was talking about, like, first of all, faces is you don't need a gimmick. And that was part of the problem. And then you have this bad gimmick, and then you try to that no one's buying, and then like you try to turn them heel, and it just tanked a lot of people's careers like that.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that, and especially back then because it was so much more important that you get over with the fans live at the live shows because that was the only time a lot of them saw you. Number one,
Get the tables.
Get the tables. Welcome to you guys. You can catch their podcast, their wonderful podcast, their live show later on today on Periscope after we're done. So do that as well. Here's the tweet that I came across, and it's from at Heel Will Mahoney. And I would have put this on screen, but I just ran out of time. He says, "What's the obsession with putting the Shield or Becky Lynch in boxes as faces or heels? Does it honestly even matter in 2018 what side of the coin someone is on? Folks seem to support their favorites regardless of the perceived label. Shades of gray open up way more possibilities." So that was kind of where the idea for bringing this topic up here tonight on the show came from. In 2018, do fans still care about heels and faces? Silky, I'll ask you. You're a fan. You're a wrestler yourself, but you still care about heels and faces?
I do. I actually do. I feel like wrestling should tell a story, and it's the oldest story in the book, good versus evil. That's when you really invest in it. You think of some of your favorite matches. That's what got you, like Ric Flair versus Steamboat. You had the party boy lifestyle of Ric Flair versus, the family man of Ricky Steamboat. They're the opposite of each other. You hated Ric Flair. You love Ricky Steamboat. And without that, if Ricky Steamboat was in the same thing partying with Ric Flair, that match wouldn't have been as special as it was. It's because there was a clear story that you could follow that, he was doing this for his family. He was doing this for the money. And which one's a better purpose to do it, money or family? You know what I mean?
And that was a lot with Ric Flair. You did the same thing with Dusty Rhodes and so on.
Yeah. And there's countless ones that we can go into where it's like, clear good versus clear evil. And that always makes for the best matches.
And I would tend to agree. Now, again, the different, and we can get to specific examples till we're blue in the face, and I don't want to necessarily, we can get into the what if. Well, what about this one? What about this one? What about this one?
That was another good one.
Yeah, exactly. I want to say welcome to Just Chris 79, who's here on our show on his very first day on Periscope. I just got the notification here. So obviously he joined Periscope because
he wanted to see us.
He knew his boys, Bees, and the Benchmark were there. So welcome to you, sir. You hear Roman off screen? Okay, we got so everybody knows what the hell just happened. So last week we had your brand new Universal Champ here, and this is one of these things. My buddy at work gave me this because he knew I was a wrestling fan. So he gave me one of these for The Rock and John Cena and Roman Reigns. And the thing of it is, when you hit the thing, then he actually says lines. Listen.
You can believe that.
Oh, you can believe that, baby. So now, if you leave it on the floor and you accidentally get too close with it with your foot, like Silky just did,
yes,
then it goes off in the middle of your podcast.
Size 14. Sorry.
Yeah. Stop it, Roman. Enough out of you. We get enough of you on television, for God's sake. All right. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is because another one of the comments that came across was face versus heel doesn't mean as much on the indie circuit, because a lot of times these guys get together for these super shows, and that's really the only time they're ever in the ring together at that particular promotion. So at the end of the day, they're just going to shake hands and hold each other's arms up, and everybody's going to go, oh, great match, and so on and so forth, and nobody gives a shit. So
I totally don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
No, because, there are a lot of shows. On the indies, it's not just a bunch of super shows running. It's like there's a lot of, you have to go to these promotions in your whatever region, whatever town you're in, and they generally have good guy versus bad guy.
Okay.
Yes, on a show, like if one show was collaborating with another show, then yeah, that's what's going to end up happening. But that's a small subsect of what the indie wrestling scene is.
So you take and for those of you who are here in Texas, you might have heard of these guys, and even if you're not, Wrestle Circus up in Austin.
Yeah.
They bring in huge names from all over the place. They had Ricochet there. They had the Gorillas of Destiny there. They all
had their parts in that show.
You think they went with the face and heel bits in that show?
You watch it, it was face and heel. The fans just are the type of fans that they love both of them, so they just cheered. But it's still a face versus a heel. There was a good guy, a very definitive good guy, and a very definitive bad guy. And
thank you, Sasha Reigns, for the nice comments on Periscope. We're glad to have you with us. You guys chime in on the comments now, because I want to hear from you guys about the Becky Lynch situation. Where do you fall on the Becky Lynch situation? Because this is the one that everybody's talking about. Number one, is it really a heel turn? Number two, did they get it wrong by having Becky go heel and trying to keep Charlotte as a face? And number three, does it even matter at the end of the day if one's a heel and one's a face? Because people are going to cheer for who they want to cheer for either way. So those of you who are with us now, what do you think of the whole Becky Lynch situation? Where do you come out on that? Because that seems to be the one that's got everybody talking about it.
I personally think that I like it. Because, you've seen Charlotte as a heel for so much of her career, so long, that it's nice to spice it up every now and then. Because it's just the same. You know, Becky playing the downtrodden babyface versus the heel that is showing her dominance and weaseling her way to keep the title. We've seen it over and over. So I like the idea that they changed it. I mean, that's what I think, that if they can go somewhere with this, but they've just got to fully commit. And right now, from what I'm seeing, it's kind of like they're playing the fence almost, like very much in a way like right now, one good promo, we could flip this whole thing and Charlotte's the heel and Becky's still a face, because they love Becky for what she's saying because they feel it.
Right, and it's interesting that you brought that up, because there was actually a poll on WWE's website about how did you feel about Becky Lynch's promo the other day. And something like between 85 and 90% of the people were like, wasn't buying it. Mm-hmm. I wasn't buying it. I wasn't buying what she was saying. Here was my issue. And again, you guys chime in here on the comments. Thank you, Mac Diesel, for inviting everybody. I think the reason it didn't work for me personally is because they went with the same tried and true shit that they do with every heel turn nowadays, which is basically, oh, you fans are cheering for me now, but where were you 6 months ago? And where were all the hashtag give Becky a chance and blah, blah. And people were actually tweeting out, I fucking said give Becky. Like, here's my exact tweet where I said that. I thought if you just stuck with her being frustrated about the fact that she's getting screwed over and that she felt like Charlotte didn't belong in the match in the first place, number one, and she certainly didn't deserve to win the match, number two, that in and of itself is reason enough to have her turn heel. But when you start making it about the fans again, and you try to play this whole, well, it's you know, it's because you guys didn't support me, and that's the reason I did it.
No, I mean, yeah, that part I didn't like. I think that she should have just made, this needs a personal level, because that attack after the match, and let's look at, you know, the basic breakdown of what happened. Is Becky Lynch had this match, arguably one of the second biggest shows WWE has, one-on-one for the Women's Championship. Then Charlotte walks in, and then she gets put in the match, who's supposed to be Becky's friend. So then not only did Charlotte win, Charlotte pinned Becky. That's the nuance. She pinned Becky to win that match.
Right. So
not only did she take her title, she actually pinned her. And so, yeah, she would be frustrated. So this needs to be personal, I think, on a level of you're supposed to be my friend, but you couldn't stand the thought of me getting the shine, being in the spotlight.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And I think that would have worked just fine. Again, it's not so much that they did it as how they did it. But
yeah, it was like the aftermath could have been a little bit better because, like you said, it's the same and true. Like, you've seen it all the time. Oh, it was the fans. Like Randy Orton just cut that promo.
Exactly right.
It was the fans. Where were you? Because I don't paint my face.
Yeah, exactly.
And all that shit. It's like, it's the same thing. And you think because it's a woman, it's different. But it's not. It's literally the same idea. I like the idea of the personalization of it to make it it's not a Becky's mad with the fans, so she's going to take it out on the fan favorite. It's Becky's mad because right now, realistically, Becky has a beef with Charlotte.
Right.
That's who her beef is with.
That's exactly
Charlotte
right.
got into this match, and this is all from Becky. I'm talking from like a Becky standpoint. She would view it as Charlotte weaseled her way into her match and stole her shine and then won the match. So it was like, you know, I don't know why Becky wouldn't just, you know, stop it. Like,
yeah, and the other thing, here was the other thing that was interesting when you're talking about WWE backtracking on the whole thing. On the WWE's YouTube channel where they showed the highlights of that promo, they conveniently left out the bit where she took a shot at the fans.
Yeah, they
cut that bit out. So it almost seems like they're hedging their bets here you know, because they're not entirely sure which way they're going to go. A couple of you chiming in here. Just Chris 79 says, I think it's a heel turn, definitely like the Shield. Ryan says, I'd be fine with Roman either way. Same with Becky, face or heel. I'm going to cheer him. Ringside Rant, they just did it because they don't want it to turn into what happened with Sasha and Bayley, where you had two, for all intents and purposes, faces. And they dropped the ball on that one big time as well.
Man, they bungled that one.
That was awful. And welcome to Hannah Reese. Very nice to have you with us, ma'am. Let's see Hannah Reese on the Twitters all the time. And Just Chris says it should have been more personal. I totally agree. I went over to the YouTube chat room to see that Alistair Fiend says, you said Pole. That's what we got out of the YouTube chat so far today. Thank you. That's great. Alistair does say, as much as I hate Carmella, she would have lost to that to cheat Carmella. I mean, she would beat Becky. I see what you're trying to get at. I think
she would have lost to that cheat. So, but... And I don't see, like, I love Carmella as a heel champion. Like, she was what a heel champion should be.
That's exactly right. I totally agree, because what's your job as a heel? Put over the babyface.
Get heat.
And get heat, exactly.
Right.
And that's
get
exactly
people to
what
hate you. And guess what? Everyone fucking hates her. So when she won, it wasn't like one of those, because I feel like she does her job so well. So it's not one of those, like, heels that when they finally get that brass ring, the fans start cheering because they're happy for the journey. No, they fucking hated that bitch.
Yeah, no, I agree.
They could not stand her, and no amount of watching her in NXT and watching her transition to the main roster and actually winning the championship, none of that masked the fact that they fucking hated her.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the other part of it is you're putting the belt on somebody who's not a sympathetic babyface, or you're having Becky turn heel against somebody who is a babyface, but I think it's also important to be a sympathetic babyface.
Yeah, you've got
and nobody is sympathetic to fucking Charlotte Flair.
I mean,
nobody.
Yeah, nobody. I mean, there's any number of people they probably could have put in that. Asuka would have been a good one.
She's too busy breaking up, fights from backstage. You mentioned that you had. That was real. Was it you that I was talking to that talked about how lame that was? That Asuka's gone from being undefeated and being in the WrestleMania title match to running out from backstage and breaking up fights and being part of that crowd. That was completely lame there as well. So in order for this to work, in my estimation anyway, you got to have somebody that the fans don't like, and they love Becky, so that's not really working. You got to have a sympathetic babyface.
Which,
Charlotte's not really sympathetic, so that's not really working.
I mean, she's like the quintessential professional wrestler. Like, she has it all when you look at it from a fan's point of view. She has the pedigree. She has the talent. I mean, you can't, she doesn't have, there's nothing about, I was listening to Busted Open, as I quite frequently do.
Yes, indeed.
And one good point they brought up is that, Becky is the one that, they're feeling Becky should be the face in this situation, because Becky is she's the girl. Like, you could see Becky and go up and talk to her and sit down, have a beer with her, something like that. Whereas Charlotte has this aura that she is very unapproachable. Like, you wouldn't even think you would see yourself in the same type of establishment that you would see Charlotte in. Because
she's going to be in the uppity place that her old man frequents and everything like that. Yeah, Mac Diesel said he'll give you 2 reasons that he likes Charlotte these days. There you go. Yeah, we know what you're talking about, Mac Diesel.
She's built like an ironing board.
Okay, then. But you still are okay with the Becky heel turn.
I'm okay with it.
Despite all that we're talking about now.
Yeah, I'm still okay with it. Well, I'm okay with the idea of her turning heel. Now, how they execute it, it stands to reason. We got to see what happens as the time goes on. But just the idea, the premise of turning Becky heel instead of Charlotte is great. But like I say, for it to really work, I think they need to make it more personal, and she needs to start taking... the shots she took at her about not being blonde enough, not being enhanced, those are great personal shots.
Absolutely.
So she needs to do more like that.
And that's what...
Talk about her father.
That's what Justin said here.
Just don't do the Paige thing and talk about her dead brother. That was horrible.
Yes, and you can't do that either.
Talk about David Flair, the one that's alive. That's
there you go.
Awful.
Alistair Fiend talking about Charlotte's enhancements as well. It just seems to be a theme of the chats. They're coming everywhere. Oh, jeez.
Sorry.
I did it again. Not even on purpose. So let's, good to see you, Chris Surratt. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. Now, what about the Shield? Because there's been a lot of talk about...
What happened Monday? I don't necessarily know if that's a heel turn.
I don't either.
And I think they realized the problem. I mean, they got the big pop that the Shield reunited. I mean, it was dope. And you, like I say, you were watching with me, and I was like, you know what? I said I didn't want to see this, and I was wrong. I really do want to see this. But the way they did it, because Braun is so over, but, I mean, it was just not definitive. You know what I mean?
No, I didn't buy it as a heel turn at all. And when people started talking about it, I thought, this is a couple of guys who jumping out there and protecting their buddy.
Yeah. Like, they're like basically the new age version of like the Cliques almost. Or
That's
like
exactly
the DX,
right.
where it's a core group of friends that, you know, they went through NXT, FCW together. They went through NXT together. They went up to the main roster together. They did things. They drew money. You know, they did so many things together. So that is a brotherhood. And so when you bring them back, and especially, like I say, the way Braun Strowman was like trying to cash in after, remember the original purpose of the Shield. They were the fucking Hounds of Justice.
That's right.
And so that was not something they felt that was an injustice for him to try to beat Roman at that moment. So that's why they stepped in.
That's exactly. And that was a great explanation. And Bob Aruski says Seth and Dean are so much more over as baby faces. Totally agree. But Becky was too, and they decided for some reason to try to turn her. So who knows what that's all about. Yeah, that was one of the better theories I saw as to why the Shield came out, because the whole Hounds of Justice thing, Braun had said, you know, I'm not going to try to sneak up after the fact. I'm not going to do this behind your back. And yet you're going to sit there and wait until the match is over with to cash in your money in the bank.
Totally made him look like a bitch.
Yeah, and that's
like a 6'8" bitch.
And and somebody said that's the injustice that the Shield was trying to correct.
Exactly.
You didn't man up and do it right. Yeah, I thought it was great too.
I mean, he needs to just say, hey, Roman Reigns, I want to challenge you to a match at this pay-per-view or on this Raw. You know what I mean? Not the keep coming out for championships, because I feel like Roman's going to be defending this title because they're almost going to overkill it, I feel, to make up for the fact that Brock had it for so long and never defended it. So I feel like he's going to keep showing up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, he has to, because the whole build to his title reign was, I'm a full-time guy. I'm here all the time. I'm putting in the work. I'm busting my ass. I deserve a shot, even though he's got a million shots. But he finally got one, and he finally took it, so that's good.
So I feel like that. Now, this could be the precipice of a heel turn for the Shield. Like, maybe they keep coming in because he keeps trying to do the whole I'm going to wait till after Roman wrestles till finally he cashes in like, hey, you know, whatever next paper. We'll just use Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell, me versus you, one-on-one for the title. And that's not an injustice, right? Because he's calling his shot. It's a regular match.
Exactly
and
right.
Then, boom, the Shield still comes out and screws Braun over. Braun becomes even more over as a face, and then that's a definitive heel turn because there was no injustice there. So
what the hell's that all about?
Yeah, so I think that's how you have to build it if you truly want the Shield to be heel. Honestly, I think it was for the pops of the Shield reuniting. I don't see it so much going that far.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Alistair Fiend says over on the YouTubes there, they did it right. I think he's talking about the Clique. They did it right when they went their separate ways. They took the beat down to get out of the Clique.
Yep.
We shall see. So he says no heel turn as well. So, yeah, it's always interesting to see how these things play out. Shout out to everybody who's here with us. Mac Diesel, thank you for joining us. Juanito. Silky Baines is with us. Alistair Fiend bopping back and forth between, the YouTubes and the Periscopes. And Antes Obechi. I don't even know how to say your name, so apologies for that, but thank you for being with us. First-time viewer here on the show. Nice tats, he says. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
About me. I have tats.
Oh, you know what? That's the porn bot saying nice tats. That was Juanito saying nice tats, so thank you for that. And then
how do you just assume they're about your tats? What about my tats? I got tats.
They can't see your tats, man.
Fuck you.
They can't. Look, see? It's off camera. Didn't have anything to do with you being a brown guy. Why you been taking the shit so personal, Silky?
Okay. I back that up.
Oh, goodness gracious. But, so we got to talking about all this, and it got us thinking back to, it got me in particular thinking back to the state of WWE right now and how so many guys, and we've talked about this before, aren't heels, aren't faces. They're kind of in between. We don't really have that straightforward, oh yeah, this guy's definitely a face. Oh yeah, this guy's definitely a heel. You got a handful of people that are like that, but there's a lot more people, it seems like, who aren't. So I'll ask you, being a professional wrestler, is it easier as a heel or a face? When you're working a show, when you're working a live show, you find it easier to work as a heel or a face?
It depends on the person, actually. I mean, for me personally, I make more money as a face.
Sure.
But I enjoy, it's more natural, I'm more naturally a heel. Like I've started off when I started wrestling.
As anybody who watches this show knows.
When I started wrestling, I started as a heel. I wrestled for like maybe my first 6-7 years as a heel before I turned baby the first time. So it really depends on the type of person you are and how you incorporate that with your wrestling persona. Like I generally, I like to bust balls and, talk shit.
This is true.
So that's made me a natural heel. When I go out there, I just say whatever I think, whatever insult I think about the person, and it's easier. But as a face, I do enjoy like the fans and, the little kids coming up to you. And like I say, I make more money.
Yes, he does.
Selling shirts. It's great.
He sells shirts. He sells trading cards.
Yeah, pictures,
all kinds of shit. He's all over that kind of stuff. Bob Aruski says it's not just a WWE debate either. And I totally agree. Again, somebody mentioned on Twitter earlier, especially in the indies, like take the All In show, for instance. That's a good one to look at.
I don't know if we can really use that because that's not like a set. I mean, it is a show, but
I'm saying the All In show.
It falls in line in one of those super shows where, it's going to be, it may not necessarily be heel versus face. It'll be face versus face because there's two different companies involved. This
is true. So. And there's also guys being pulled from all over. But, I mean, there's a fair amount of shows like that. We've talked about how, I asked you when we went to the Ring of Honor show about the Bullet Club and how they tend to be more heelish when they're working New Japan and maybe more babyish when they're working with Ring of Honor. Mm-hmm. So, it can even be the same fucking guys depending on where they are. And that worked back in the territory days because nobody knew about shit that went on in different territories.
Exactly.
Whereas now everything's on the fucking internet, so it's not like you can say, oh, well, I'm going to be a babyface over here, but I'm going to go over here and be a heel. It doesn't work that way. I've always said that I feel like, anyway, the simpler the story, the clearer the picture is between who we're supposed to root for and who we're not supposed to root for, the better off everybody's going to be.
Yeah, it actually does make for better matches. You can pull off a good baby versus baby if there's something they're wrestling for, like i.e. a championship or maybe even a chance to wrestle the champion. But for your best matches, you need that definitive bad guy, that guy that you want to lose so bad. And then the good guy, the guy that, you most identify with. That's what separates, in my opinion, a bad guy from a good guy. The good guys, the true baby faces, someone in the audience identifies with them on some level, like a personal level. Like you could see yourself in that person. Whereas the heels generally, especially back in the territory days, they had that larger than life persona. Like same thing we were talking about with Charlotte and Becky, where it's like the heels, you couldn't see yourself even being in the same place that they would go to. Whether they were like the upscale or the roughnecks that, go to places that's too rough for anyone to go to, it's the same premise.
Yeah, I hear you. Juanito says, fuck the Bullet Club #1 and fuck the logo on Silky's hat. It's funny, Juanito is, I think he's up in arms about, Juanito, are you a Chicago Bulls hater or is it just a fact?
Why are you a Bulls hater?
It reminds him of the Brahma Bull and he hates The Rock. Which is stunning to me because I've never met anybody outside, and I've never met Juanito. We just know each other via our shows and whatnot. I don't know anybody who hates the fucking Rock.
Yeah.
Juanito can't stand the
Bulls.
Rock.
Is it the Bulls or the Rock? Because if it's the Rock, then okay, I can
definitely tell you it's the Rock, but I don't know if it's also the Chicago Bulls or just the fact that it's a bull.
The Bulls.
How can you not hate the Bulls? Of course you can hate the Bulls.
You can't hate the Bulls.
You can't hate them now because they're shitty and you got to feel sorry for them. But
yeah, you do feel a little sorry. It's a little rough watching their games. But
I enjoyed watching the Bulls in the 90s.
Yeah.
They were great. But I could see where people hated them.
I bet you he's a fucking LeBron fan too.
Listen, you talking shit about our one of our most loyal viewers in Juanito.
I mean,
here.
I love Juanito, but
Such a bullshit.
I bet you he's a LeBron fan.
He's a San Diego Chargers fan, is what he is. So he's getting psyched
that's
about
already
that.
showing bad taste.
And Bobaruski says if you're going to do a rivalry, then it has to be face versus heel.
Yes.
If
That's
you're going
the
to do a
only way.
rivalry. New Day, I love Jordan, Texas A&M, fuck The Rock. That's Juanito chiming in on that there. So,
Okay, so if it's the Rock thing, then I get it.
and see Alistair Feeney's West Coast, fuck The Rock. Red Nation. I guess maybe Red Nation is for the Bulls, maybe. I don't know. What's the Red Nation all about? Because we say Red Nation. Alistair
in
Feeney,
Texas.
I think he's a Houston guy, actually.
Yeah.
Or a Texas guy, so he's probably talking Red Nation like the Rockets.
Okay.
So that's a good thing. Gosh, am I late? Rebecca Smith, you are late, but that's okay. I can agree, but what if you cheer heels? There's just something about
Then
them
you
that
are what's
causes
wrong
me
with wrestling.
Stop it. She's not what's wrong with wrestling.
Not you personally, Rebecca Smith, but I mean, the
but
heels
she
are
says-
supposed to be hated.
But she says there's just something about them that causes me to cheer them. Does that make them faces in her eyes?
Technically, yeah, it kind of makes them face. It's that new age stuff. It's like
Does it make them a face in her eyes, or does it make them a failed heel? Because
it makes
we've had
them a failed heel.
Because that's
like,
the other thing, Rebecca, in response to your question, we've said this shit before. If your job is to go out there and get booze and you don't get booze, that's on you.
Yeah, you
fucked up your job.
You know, and it's one of those things where
You failed, and that makes you a failure.
Samoa Joe says it.
Yeah.
So it's got to be the truth.
it does have to be the truth. I mean, nowadays everybody wants to do the cool things because, making money.
Absolutely.
Selling your merchandise.
Selling merch, yeah.
Nobody's buying Carmella shit. But nobody's supposed to buy Carmella shit. Because she's doing what she's supposed to do. She's getting people to hate her. I mean, that's how it's always worked. And people are trying to reinvent the wheel to get these cool heels. So they do bad things, but they have that air of coolness, just enough so they can sell their fucking T-shirts.
And it goes back, and that's exactly, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, it goes back to, and we wrote down, we made our list of some heel turns that actually worked. And so we could talk about why they fucking worked. And why this Becky heel turn, in my opinion, isn't going to work. And the first one that I thought of immediately is the most iconic one. And you guys chime in. What's your favorite heel turn of all time? Want to know what heel turns you loved? Which ones do you think are the best? Of course, the one that comes to mind first is the most iconic one of all time, which was Hogan.
Hulk Hogan.
Which was Hogan turning heel. And as I was thinking about it, I'm thinking to myself, if you're gonna execute a heel turn, you got to do one of two things, and preferably both. You got to turn on a wildly popular babyface. If you just turn on some fucking jamoke babyface, it's okay, but it helps if you turn on somebody who's crazy popular.
No one cares.
Number one. And number two is to align yourself with somebody that people fucking hate. And if you look at what Hogan did, the reason it was so perfect, in my opinion, was number one, I mean, no matter where we were at that particular point, he was still the most recognizable face in professional wrestling, without question. Even if you didn't follow them anymore, and even if you thought he was getting a little bit stale. But when he finally not only turned heel, he turned against WCW when the outsiders had come in and were basically shitting all over the whole company. And WCW fans were like, fuck these guys. Our WCW guys are going to come defend our fucking honor. We're going to make it happen. And Hogan comes and sides with the guys that are trying to tear down the company. They fucking hated that.
Yeah, I mean, that was... Now, you can I struggle with counting the Hogan turn, and just that it was just such an epic catalyst of wrestling that it almost stands above everything else. That's not just a normal heel turn. That was Hulk Hogan, the symbol of white meat babyface for fucking 20-something years.
Exactly.
Turning heel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is a great heel turn. So, it does fit the criteria, but it's almost
one of a kind.
Yeah, it's
totally one of a kind.
Totally one of a kind. Like, all the other ones you've listed, I'm looking at, like, the Rollins turn.
Rollins turning on the... Well, let's get to the ones that these guys brought up first. Okay. MGB talks about the Ciampa heel turn in recent memory. Again, look at the criteria we're talking about. Was there a more fucking
over team than DIY.
Well, and it's just Johnny Gargano looks like, you talk about white meat babyface.
Yes.
And look up the term for those of you who think we're talking about white people, because it doesn't have anything to do with white people. I mean,
Hulk Hogan is like a hot dog color.
He fucking looks the part. He acts the part. When he's getting the shit kicked out of him, I mean, he gets that blank look like he's going to fucking die.
Yeah, he gets the sympathy.
He gets the sympathy, yes. So Ciampa not only turns on him, he turns on him at the height of their popularity when there's practically no single guy. I mean, the Johnny Wrestling chants had already started. Everybody fucking loved Johnny Gargano. And I want to thank my neighbor for mowing the fucking yard while we're doing the show here. That's always great. It's fucking 8:37 in the p.m. That's when you know you're in Houston, Texas, when it's 112 degrees all fucking day, and somebody decides they're going to mow the lawn at 8:37 p.m. because that's the only time the temperature drops into double digits. Thank you, Juanito, for the kind hearts about the kind words about the show. We'll get the Patreon up soon. Juanito's asking about our Patreon because he wants to support. You know what we're doing, Juanito? We're building up the audience. We're getting people who dig the show like you, who spread the word about the show. Didn't want to come in right away asking folks for money. And we're chipping in and helping out where we can. Yes. Proud Patreon supporters of the Dr. Huge Show. Get the Tables, which is coming on later tonight. Dr. Huge.
We don't have a Get the Table
Don't have a Get the Table sounder. And Super Kicking It with Kelsey, our friend Kelsey, who works very hard as well.
And we don't really have like a Shawn Michaels sounder, but, I mean, enjoy the sounds of Cleveland.
No.
It has nothing to do with this, but I just love that. I'm sorry.
Silky's been asking me to add that for so long, and I finally got to it, so he was very excited. Bobaruski says Rock's heel turn didn't really get that much booze.
Yeah, I mean, no. Because Mick Foley was, Rock's heel turn was to turn Mick Foley baby. And, you know, very rarely, like the Austin Hart double turn is like literally the only real double turn that I've seen work.
And they worked it fucking perfectly.
But, like, I think they were trying to replicate something that happened organically. You know, I don't think, and I wasn't with WWE. I was fucking like 10 or 12 when this happened.
Yeah.
But when the Austin Hart thing happened, I don't think necessarily they were going for turning Brett and turning Austin at the same time. It was just happened. The fans started siding with Austin more, you know, because there it was. It was that believability, that likability, that I can see myself in that person.
Well, and
he was the common man versus Bret Hart, the wrestling pedigree. And there's nothing wrong. Bret Hart wasn't doing anything necessarily heelish. He started cutting the anti-America shit towards the later. But, you know, just Austin versus Hart, the wrestlers. Hart is the, like I say, the wrestling pedigree. Been in it since he was born.
And Austin was the blue collar guy.
Yeah, Austin's the blue collar guy. There's probably several people that's like can tell you they went to fucking school with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And it's like
went out and had a beer with Stone Cold. He's a guy you can go out and have a beer with after the show. You don't hear those stories
about someone like Bret Hart because of his status and in the business. So that's what made it so organic that the fans naturally, as they shifted, since that was who they were in the feud with, Austin was in the feud with. They shifted from Hart and went straight to Austin. And in that turn, they started fucking hating Hart. And then that was one of the rare cases the fans made me do, or I blame the fans for you guys not receiving me. I'm a legend in Canada. You know, that's the one exception where that shit worked.
That shit actually worked. And the great thing about that double heel turn, and thank you again, Alistair, for the Super Hearts. He's bouncing back and forth between Periscope and YouTube because he just had crazy, he said crazy surgery on his computer or something like that. So, and thank you, Get the Tables, who popped in shortly to drop another Super Hard as well. The reason that turn was so impressive is because it pretty much happened right there in the match.
Yes.
And that's
it wasn't
another
like
thing.
And it, like I say, because it was organic. Like, there wasn't when you watch any of the build up to that match, Austin was very much the heel. Hart was very much the face.
That's exactly right. And then Hart started beating the ever-living shit out of Austin to the point where the fans were like, dude, he's up, man. Like he's up on the guy.
God damn.
And I honest and truly believe if Austin hadn't gotten busted open and we hadn't had that visual of him screaming with the blood streaming down his face
and passing out,
don't think that shit would have worked.
I mean, now, and he did that. That's, again, one of the things where he did that work that it became replicated, and it was just so watered down and fucking stupid. Like, when Austin, I think in my memory, was the first person I saw that literally passed out from pain in a match.
Right.
Like everyone else, like submitted, or they came up with some screw finish so the babyface wouldn't have to actually say submit. But Austin, like passing out from the blood loss. I mean, how can you not respect someone who went into a fight,
right.
lost buckets of blood, still fought, and would refuse to fucking quit?
Had to
when
pass out.
It was like probably better for him to do it.
Absolutely right.
I mean,
absolutely right. No,
organic. Like that is the key to all of these heel and face stories. It has to be organic within the confines of what the story you're telling.
And that's the thing. If you don't tell a story because you don't establish faces, you don't establish heels, how's it going to work? And that's what gets frustrating. And Rebecca brought up another one that I had looked at, so props to you, Rebecca Smith. What about when Shawn Michaels turned on Marty Jannetty? The Rockers.
Yeah.
Which, of course, was a great tag team back in the day. And that iconic segment in Brutus the Barber Beefcake's The Barbershop, where Shawn Michaels not only goes apeshit, but throws him through the fucking window. I mean, that was brilliant as well.
Yeah, that was a definitely good heel turn.
Another, speaking of people getting thrown through things, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho was a guy that people weren't necessarily buying as a babyface at that particular point in time, but everybody sure bought him as a heel after he kicked the shit out of Shawn Michaels and threw him through the fucking
TV
Geritron 9000 or whatever it was. I mean, that was...
Well, he came in as a heel, though.
Was he working heel at that particular time?
He was always working heel. I mean, it's very... I'd have to go back, but I'm very hard-pressed to think of many face moments of Chris Jericho in the WWE. He was almost always heel.
Well, I remember around the time when I came in and started watching again, like that WrestleMania 17, where this is another one where we'll talk about a heel turn that didn't necessarily work. Jericho was the Intercontinental Champ at the time. He was crazy over babyface at that point.
Yeah, okay.
Feuding with William Regal and guys like that.
Pissed in the teapot.
Exactly, which was
that
great.
was classic.
Which was great. Now, speaking of WrestleMania 17, we've talked about heel turns that work great. In theory, when you take Stone Cold Steve Austin, who's arguably the most popular babyface of all time, I mean, you got to put Hogan up there, obviously, but and you turn him on another guy who was wildly popular at the time, The Rock, and not only do you turn him against The Rock, but you align him with Vince McMahon, who he's fucking hated for years, and they together made one of the great stories of all time, drew the biggest ratings in television history of pro wrestling. That should work as a heel turn.
You failed, and that makes you a failure.
And it failed big time.
Miserably.
Because people didn't buy it.
No, I mean, I think it wasn't that the people didn't buy it, honestly. I think it was all the bullshit they did after. Like, Stone Cold was supposed to be the
badass.
The redneck.
And they made him the fucking comedy shit with Kurt Angle. And
which was funny TV. It was entertaining
It
TV.
was funny.
But it's still like, I can't buy that you're supposed to be this badass when you're singing Jimmy Crack Corn and, forcing people to eat your wife's shitty cookies. Remember that gimmick where Deborah couldn't bake and he would force all the members of the Alliance to take a bite and tell her they were great?
Yeah, it was just not good.
I mean, it was just not good. Like, the heel turn itself wasn't bad. Like, I was there. I think you said you were there as well.
I was there, yep.
And when you saw it, it was a jaw-dropping moment. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, no, tell me that didn't just happen.
Well, and see,
but it was the aftermath, I think, where that heel turn fell off, not the actual turn.
Exactly. Well, and part of it was, that WrestleMania, for those of you that don't remember, was here in Houston in the Astrodome. So, I mean, I was a Rock fan. I was cheering for The Rock at the time, but it was definitely a pro Austin contingent there at the show. I mean, there were a lot of Rock fans there, but it was still a pretty pro Austin contingent. But again, I don't think that The Rock necessarily falls into the category of a sympathetic babyface, in that he's already been a multiple-time WWE champion. He's already a huge megastar. He's already one of the most popular guys there. But for whatever reason, I guess maybe because he used to be a heel or because he was always such a smartass and he was always kind of giving people shit, maybe it didn't quite work out. in terms of him being a sympathetic character.
I mean, or could it be the fact that he was like 6'4", 280 fucking pounds, ripped to the jack that no one can, so you can't really see him getting his ass whooped.
Yeah, that's true too.
That's another thing that I think we don't take into consideration when you talk about, sympathy. Reason Johnny Gargano elicits that sympathy is because, and no offense, because he's shredded and I'm sure he could probably beat a lot of people, but when you look at him, he looks like someone who could get his ass whooped.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's, like I say, no disrespect to Johnny Gargano, but Tommaso Ciampa, on the other hand, looks like he would whoop his ass. Yeah. He
looks like a mean fucker. Ciampa always, to me, looked out of place as a face. Not that I didn't buy it, because I did. But when you see him turn heel, you go, that guy belongs as a heel.
It's one of those things where it's like, that if this team breaks up and they start fighting each other, Ciampa's going to be the heel. Yeah. There's no, let's make Gargano the heel. No. But I think that's another thing that plays into it, though, the believability of somebody to elicit that sympathy. Rock is not one of those persons, which brings me to it. I was just thinking when you were speaking, can success hamper your, because you talk about when you say, you mentioned the fact that he was already a multiple-time champion,
right?
Things like that.
Right.
So do you think at a certain point you are too successful as a babyface to be have a heel turned on you?
Yeah, I totally think so, because I think you're seeing that right now with Charlotte. I think the fact that Charlotte's a 7-time women's champion already, and it's not like she's been in the fucking WWE for 10 years. I mean, she's been there, 4 or 5 years maybe? 7-time champion already. I think that's part of the reason that people don't have sympathy for Charlotte, because they feel like she's either been given everything, which I think is kind of a bullshit thing, even though I do think it doesn't hurt that she's Ric Flair's daughter. But yeah, I think and Juanito says it fuck me. I was totally stunned myself when I saw that she's actually won it 7 times already. I think that definitely plays into it. Now, I say that, but if a babyface turned heel by jumping John Cena, like AJ Styles did, for example. If you remember, AJ Styles came out and was very kind to John Cena and all of a sudden started beating the shit out of John Cena. I mean, John Cena had more fucking title reigns than anybody. I think at that point he was still short, but John Cena's biggest megastar of this generation by far, and people love the fact that AJ Styles beat the shit out of him, and that was not a problem. So I don't know, man. I guess the
thing is that the more successful you are, it's better not to try a turn on that person. I mean,
there's no real hard and fast rules.
Yeah, there's no hard and fast. There's not a book that tell you how to do this, but because sometimes, and as someone who books wrestling shows and whatnot, sometimes you'll do a turn and it just completely falls fucking flat.
Yeah, people don't care.
Then sometimes you're like, okay, well, we'll turn this person. We got nothing for him on the face side. Let's reinvigorate. He's getting kind of stale. Let's turn him heel. And then boom, that dude takes it and runs with it. So it also is a bit of what the wrestler does with it once they make that turn.
Well, and we've talked about that before. I mean, guys have taken shitty gimmicks and done amazing things with them. So it certainly has something to do with that as well. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, especially in the Becky situation, because as we said, it looks like WWE might be hedging their bets a little bit as far as Becky goes, and maybe thinking twice about that particular heel turn. Where WWE went wrong, Bobarooski says, with the AJ heel thing was doing the beat up John Cena line.
Hashtag beat up John Cena.
Yeah, and the whole I don't think Gallows and Anderson, they haven't interested me in the slightest in all their time in WWE, and I understand the pedigree those guys have in Japan and everything, but as far as what they've done since they've been over here,
I just think that and you can't turn AJ on someone like John Cena. I mean, it's really hard to turn AJ because of the fact, again, he's that person, fans seen him. They saw the struggles he went through with TNA and that bullshit.
Yep.
And then going to New Japan and the success he had there to making it to WWE. So they feel like they're part of his journey because they've watched this man wrestle for 15 fucking years.
And he's another guy.
And so when he did the turn on John Cena, it was like, fuck yeah. you know what this means? I get to see Cena versus AJ Styles. Like 3 years ago, I would have told you you're fucking crazy if you said this match would happen.
Exactly.
So,
and he's another guy that said, he outright said, I failed as a heel. I didn't get the boos. I didn't get the reaction that I was supposed to get. So, you know, that's on me. That's my failure.
And that makes you a failure.
That's exactly right. See, Joe's still pissed about that. And that's why he's kicking AJ Styles' ass nowadays. Been a crazy week in WWE. So, I was looking at it earlier. Since Saturday with NXT TakeOver, we've got a new Universal Champion.
Yep.
We got a new Intercontinental Champion.
Yep.
We got a new Raw Women's Champion.
Yep.
We got a new SmackDown Live Women's Champion.
Yep.
We got new SmackDown Live Tag Team Champions.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, on Tuesday.
Oh, I didn't watch Tuesday.
Since Saturday, yeah. The New Day beat the Bludgeon Brothers for the SmackDown Live Tag Team Championships. So we got a new champion there. We got a new North American champion in NXT. We got a new women's champion in NXT. We got the return of The Shield. We got the return of the Demon. Don't hate on the Demon. You can't hate on the Demon. Brooke's not even here to defend the Demon. It was a crazy, crazy week, man. And I would argue one of the better weeks that we've had in WWE in a long time.
Yes.
And we've got a lot to talk about. And you know what? That's a good thing in terms of the way that they've been booking their shows and they've been getting me. I won't speak for anybody else. I'm totally bought into the AJ Styles Joe feud to see where that goes.
Yes.
SmackDown Live on Tuesday, you missed it, but Jeff Hardy went completely apeshit against Randy Orton and, you know, just went nuts. Totally into that feud, see where that goes. I love the Miz finish, the brass knuckles against Daniel Bryan. That feud is going places. The Shield being there to protect Roman makes that reign immediately more compelling. A lot of good stuff, man. A lot of good shit to talk about. So we enjoy chatting about it with you guys. So thank you all for joining us. And thank you all for the super hearts, for the support, for tagging in, everything like that, inviting your followers. We always appreciate what you guys do for us here on the show. So again, make sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're checking us out, whether it be on the Periscopes or here on YouTube. So keep pointing at my jump. tinyurl.com/Spees benchmark. Stop it. It's getting a little close there. It's a little uncomfortable. Silky all over here. Like, so subscribe there. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, wherever you happen to be listening to us, hit that subscribe button as well. We would greatly appreciate it. Just as we appreciate you guys joining us. We'll see you as well, Mac Diesel. Silky, anything to throw out there? I know you got something to throw out there before we get out today.
Yeah, this Sunday, I'm going to be punching people several times around the facial region in the Katy, Texas Elks Lodge. Come see me at DZW, DZWrestling.com. And what were you going to do?
I'm waiting for you to take it home.
Okay, and I hate your face.
Okay, that's what it was. I was waiting to hit the music for Silky to say that shit. So, for the Benchmark, Silky Baines, Chris Spizak, thank you guys for being with us. Speeds in the Benchmark Show. We'll see you next time.